Hello, everybody. This is going to be a new series I'm going to do, which is How To Tuesdays. And every Tuesday, I will post a video on how to do a stitch or a project or whatever I can think of. But if you have any suggestions or you know you want to learn something and you're just not finding anything out there that is helping you and you want a different point of view, that leave a comment and I will try my best to teach you how to do whatever you're looking to learn. And it could be projects or stitches. I am experienced but not super experienced, so I may not know every stitch. So with that, give me grace because I will probably have to either learn to do a stitch or there are just some stitches I will not be able to teach you. So with that, we are going to work on our granny square stitch, and we're going to work it in a horizontal way instead of in a square way. So instead of doing it in a square and working out, we're going to be working from one end to the other and then go up and then go back and forth instead. So with that, to start this project, you always have to have a multiple of 3 in your chain. So however big your project is, make sure you just do it a multiple of 3, and this should work out when you go back across to start your granny clusters. So with that, you need to go, so we need to go 2 over from your hook, and you need to put a double. So if you're looking for a more finished edge, work into the back loop. If you are going to do a border or sew it together, then it doesn't matter if you work into the front loops or the back loops. So I'm going to do my double crochet here, and you only need 2 in this first one because that chain 2 counts as a double crochet. So now the important thing is to skip 2 and work into the 3rd chain again. So, and the reason you're skipping 2 is because you just put a cluster, a double in the previous stitch, and you're going to put 3 doubles in this next one. So I just split the yarn, but that's fine because this yarn has been used a bunch to show up how-tos. So with that, this double was supposed to go here, and that double was supposed to go here. But because we're doing a cluster stitch, we're not putting them there, and we're just going to skip over them. So we're going to skip the next 2 and do our cluster granny stitch of 3 double crochets into the next loop. Okay. And when I make my granny squares, I don't chain in between each cluster. I like the way it looks with the smaller spaces in between, but if you want more of a bigger gap, chain 1 then, and that can give you a nice holy look. Okay, so with that, if you do chain 1 though, you have to account for that in your starting chain. So if you're planning on chaining 1 in between each double or each cluster, then you need to add an extra chain to every 3. So instead of 3, it would be 4. So with that, you now will work a 3 cluster here, and this will be your first, technically, oh, I cannot get that in there. Okay, this will be your first granny cluster. So now I'm going to chain 2, and then I am going to work only into the spaces now. So you're going to yarn over and insert it into the spaces between them, and you're going to do your regular old granny cluster there. Now you need 3 of them because this does not count as part of this cluster. This is your edge, so you do not need that there. Or you need this here, but you don't count it as your cluster. So let's move on to the next one and work our way across. And I know it doesn't look like I have super straight edges now, but once you start working it up, you will get those super straight edges. So now that you've worked, pause the video and work your way across into each space. No stitches, only space. Only time you are going to work into a space is when you get to the end of the row and you have this extra cluster here. You need that extra chain to account for the cluster, or to account for your spaces. So with that, you are going to yarn over and you're going to insert it through. I always like to do 2 loops. 2 loops, you're gonna pull up and you're going to have your 1 double. So with that, that is your first row, second row. So now your next row, and this is going to just be a repeat, you're going to chain 2, turn. This is going to count now as a double crochet. And I will explain here when it does and when it doesn't. So you're going to add your 2. Oh, sorry, I got a knot in this yarn. There we go. Okay, so now work your way across, and at each space you're going to put 3 double crochets. Don't forget to chain 1 if you want a bigger gap in between each cluster. Okay, so now we're at the end here. We need to add 3 here. We need to add 3 double crochets here. It's important that you do, or your ends will look lopsided. All right. So let me explain. Your first row, you're going to end each row in a cluster of 3. Your second row, which is 2, row 2, you're going to end in just a double crochet, and you're going to start it with a chain 2. Your third row is going to end in and start with a cluster of 3, and that is your whole pattern. You are just going to continue that all the way up, and this will give you nice straight edges, and it's going to look even. So odd ends will always end in and begin with a cluster of 3. Even rows, I said odd ends, odd rows will always end in a cluster of 3 and start with a cluster of 3. Even rows will always end in a double crochet and start with a chain 2. So this is row 1, row 2, row 3. So now that row 3 was beginning and ending with a cluster, we're going to begin and end with a chain 2 and a double crochet. And I will do this just to show you guys real quick what it will look like. So you're going to chain 2, turn your work. Okay, so now you're going to go over and you're going to do 3 double crochets here, 3 double crochets into this space, 3 double crochets into the next space, and then you're going to do 1 double crochet into the last stitch. So here's your chain 2, because this is where you started on your last row. So your chain 2, the top of that chain 2, because this one goes with the double, so you're going to go to the top of the chain 2, and you're going to put a double there, okay? And you're going to just continue that for your whole project, okay? And your starting chain is going to be a little on the tighter side, so just make sure you make this a little looser if it's pulling real bad. So remember, odd rows will have clusters, and even rows will have a single. Right, here's your single. Okay. With that, I think I'm going to hop off. I don't think there's anything else. You're just going to make it as big as you need it to be. If you are chaining 1, your chain on the ends are going to be a chain of 3 and not a chain of 2, because you need that extra third chain to account for your chain over, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So if you're adding chains in between here, you need to add your chain onto your chain 2, because you need it to count as a chain over unless you're doing a cluster. So for instance, this is a chain 2 and then 2 double crochets. You're not going to chain 3 here because you're not moving over to the next space. You're continuing this cluster. So the only time you need to chain 3 is when you are going up to the next row. This is the only time you chain 3 if you're doing a chain in between each cluster. All right. So with that, I think I am all done with this little swatch of pattern. So if you have any questions, please comment below and I will try my best to answer them. If I can't answer them in a writing form, I will probably make another video to answer those questions. I hope this all makes sense. Peace out. Bye.